am thrilled to be interviewing the poet Azeem, who is a longtime friend of mine and a collaborator, as well as an artist of many different forms. And I just want to get deep into the history, your background, and
oh man, we're gonna need 3 hours for that.
Yeah. Well, let's just give me a little introduction for what you would want someone who doesn't know who yet.
Well, man, when people say, hey, where are you from, and depending on where I'm at, I might say Oakland, I might say New Jersey, I might say Brooklyn, I might say Miami. I was born in New Jersey, but at the age of 14, I moved from New Jersey to Atlanta. And then after about a year and a half, I moved from Atlanta to Los Angeles, South Central. And then we moved from South Central to Miami. And then finally, I left my home at 17 and moved to the Bay. But all of those different cities, from Jersey to Atlanta to Los Angeles to Miami, that's my high school career.
Okay, wow.
Never really graduated. Actually, I dropped out of school in the 7th grade. Well, I got kicked out of school in the 7th grade and never graduated 8th grade. I was a really, really bad student. I'm not gonna say I was a bad kid, but I was intelligent, but I didn't know what I was good at, so I used my intelligence for mischief. I got arrested a whole lot when I was a kid. Everybody thought that I was destined for the penitentiary, just like so many of my male cousins and 1 or 2 of my female cousins.
Wow.
And then I read the autobiography of Malcolm X at around 18, 19. First full book that I read.
Oh my gosh.
And it put me on a completely different trajectory, on a different path. And somewhere along those lines, I discovered that I could write. And I used to do it, but I didn't know that I was good at it. I used to do it just for fun. Me and my friends would have little battle raps and stuff like that, like in Atlanta, and make fun of each other, and everybody would laugh, but it wasn't until later on that when I started applying myself to writing songs and raps and things and poems, I immediately stopped getting in trouble. Like immediately, it was just immediately. Every city I lived in, I got arrested, for different things, juvenile stuff, As soon as I started writing, I stopped getting in trouble, and then I started studying esoteric philosophies and occult philosophies and religions and all of that sort of stuff. That's kind of what made the Azeem today. That and growing up in all of those different cities and all the wild experiences I had, because I was only attracted to hanging out with the other so-called bad kids. In Miami and LA in those days, even Atlanta in those days were really, really wild. You know what I mean? A lot of guns and a lot of crime and a lot of violence, and I went through it all. And it's kind of really that's why I'm writing this book, Misfit King, because I see it as really an American story. It's a view of growing up in America. From a perspective that, is a little bit different, because I feel like I really sunk myself into the different subcultures of America, from the East Coast culture, and then suddenly in the South, and then suddenly in Los Angeles, like with the gang culture when it was so heavy. Those was 3 completely different worlds, And I navigated through all those worlds, and I had to become a different person. Well, not had to, but as humans we adapt. So I became a different person in each city that I lived in. And the Bay at the time when I moved to the Bay was like, it was magical. It was just magical. It was a place for artists and for rebels, and it was just such a beautiful time. And so really, I would say that the Bay is where I really grew up and became who I was. But all those other experiences in those other cities made me the type of artist that I am. I wish sometimes I could write slackness, write like certain type of like lower self songs that make money, because on the radio today the only type of songs that make money is lower self things, lust and greed and envy and murder and money and material things. But I could never do it. I could only write from the opposite perspective of that mind state. And for better or for worse, that's what it's done for me. It brought me to where I am. I've never been rich off of my art, but I've at least been able to travel the world because of it. I've been to 35 different countries, and I'm proud of that, because I was destined to go a whole other direction. So the fact that my pen and my pad alone has gotten me to 35 different countries and has enabled me to learn the world, because reading and traveling have been my education and my college. So I can't complain the fact that I've never really gotten rich off my craft. In the end, it might be a blessing, because at any point in my career, had I made $1 million, I might not be here today. I probably would have just wilded out and wasted it and destroyed myself in the process. So God, if you're listening, now I'm ready to make $1 million. You can open the floodgates now. I'm ready.
I would love to jump back in the different cities you lived in and maybe just go through each one.
Yep.
And tell me the age you were at and like just a short description of who that kid was.
Okay, so my birth name is Christian Burke, Christian Forrest Burke. Christian Forrest Burke was a little asshole, Again, I really was convinced that I was destined to go to prison. Maybe I was told that, and I believed it. I didn't think I was good at anything other than being shady, My older brother Leaf was like the kid who never got in trouble. He was the school president. I was the exact opposite of that. So they kicked me out of school in 7th grade, and at that time, my father's job took him to Los Angeles, and my mother's job took her to Atlanta. So, when I was 12 in 7th grade, after I got kicked out of school, it was just us kids in the house. It was only my older brothers and sisters, and I was the youngest one in the house. So we had the party house. People were running away and living at our house, and there was, non-stop parties at the house, and my parents would come to check in on us, once every other month or something like that. It was a wild time. It's like, I feel like I grew up on a whole other planet, but regardless. So by the time I'm 13, close to 14, I moved to Atlanta. By now, I'm partying, I'm smoking weed, I'm drinking, doing all the things that my older brothers did. I had very low self-esteem because I was always getting in trouble. And I didn't know myself. So I moved to Atlanta and immediately got with the wrong crowd. And that's where I got introduced to, the whole gunplay thing that goes on in the inner cities with kids. A lot of my friends were robbing houses for guns.
Wow.
Going to war in the summers, and I held my first AK-47, things like that. Wow. My best friend, his father was a drug dealer, so we used to skip school and go hang out at his house and steal from his father's stash and smoke and drink. I lost my virginity in a group setting, so to speak. Like, my man came out of the room and said, "Hey man, you're next." She's in there waiting for me.
Wow.
Huh? What? And then everybody looked at me and started laughing like, "Oh, he ain't never had no pussy."
Wow.
So I was literally like peer pressured
Man,
into losing my virginity.
that's really heavy. That's really heavy.
It is what it is, man. And another thing was the Southern culture was really strange to me because when I moved to Atlanta, that's when I first got introduced to what racism is really about in America, and it was really shocking to me. Like one of my friends, my only white friend who lived around the corner, his father cussed me out and called me a nigger.
Wow.
Told me, go home, nigger. This isn't New Jersey, boy.
Ugh.
And I remember, like, because he used to brag about his father being a boxer in the Navy and being a big tough guy and stuff like that. And I remember when his father, it was the first time I've ever been called a nigger, and I said, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
And he said, "What'd you say to me, boy?" And he rushed towards me, and something inside me just said, "Don't run." I wanted to run. I thought this grown man was going to tear me apart. But something inside me just said, don't run, don't run. I just stood there looking up at him, until my friend was like, come on, let's go, man, forget this, let's go. And we ran off into the woods together. That was a major lesson in my life. I think had I had run at that moment, I think it would have changed me when it came to other confrontations that I had later in life. I think I would have relied on that. But I ended up in other, even scarier situations later in LA and in other places. And the same thing happened. The voice in my head said, don't run, don't run. And I forced myself to face, things in really violent situations. And I don't know if the word is proud. I'm happy that I didn't do that, and it's something that I could say. I never ran, and it. I think that courage is necessary for people in the situation in the environment that I grew up in. I think it taught me a great lesson. Then I moved to Los Angeles. I know absolutely nothing about gang culture. And we live smack dab in the middle of South Central LA, at the height of gangbanging. And by now, I consider myself a graffiti artist. So I'm on a skateboard in South Central LA, in the middle of the night, riding a skateboard around, spray painting on these walls. And these guys come up to me and they're like, hey man, where are you from? I'm like, oh man, I'm from Jersey. They're like, all right, listen man, you need to go home right now. They were like, Bloods are out headhunting tonight. They see you in them blue sweatpants out of that, you're dead. You need to get out of here, kid, right now, So I started to be introduced to the gang culture out there, and was never really, I was never in the culture enough to join anything. I wouldn't, because I wasn't tough enough, or I wasn't, wild enough to necessarily join a gang. I didn't even know how to do it really, but I was right in the middle of it, and I realized that I was in a lot of danger, and I just didn't know it. So finally, my mother said, why don't you go out and visit your brother? Because again, my brother, he was in college, he was doing his thing. And so I went to San Jose to visit my brother. And the very day that we got there, we went straight from the airport to the Hate Street Festival. And we got to the Hate Street Festival, and I had never seen anything like that before in my life. And, my brother was living in a college atmosphere, so he lived in like this party house, It was their apartment, it was their house that they rented on 10th Street in San Jose. But it was a party house, But my brother still partied, he just never got in trouble for it like I did. But everybody's nice, and everybody's smart, and everybody's cool, and like there's no violence, and there's no, like, I could relax you know, and spend days listening to music. So long story short, I called my mother. I told her I'm not coming back. You know, she's like, what about school? I'm like, I don't know, I'm not coming. I have to stay here. You know, I can't come home. So she, you know, talked to my brother and said, okay, he can stay as long as he signs up for City College or something like that. You know? So I ended up staying with my brother in the Bay, in this other environment around people who were all older than me. I'm hanging out with my brother and his friends. I'm using my brother's ID. I'm in the clubs, I'm in the bars, I'm at the live shows. The first live concert I saw was Jane's Addiction and Love and Rockets. I'm in the mosh pits, you know, I'm in the mosh pits, and I'm able to express my frustration in these mosh pits, and you know, and things like that. And so I immediately stopped getting into trouble, and I'm writing every day, and I'm being exposed to all these new music. These are college kids, so they know all the new music. So I'm listening to all types of music and different types of hip hop and different types of, you know, I'm listening to The Cure and the Smiths and the Sex Pistols and all of that stuff. Plus Public Enemy and Poor Righteous Teeth, like everything, you know. And that's when Azeem, well, no, not Azeem. That's when the artist in me, the seeds began to grow, and I realized that I could write. And then I would just sit and I'd write a poem or a song.
Hell yeah.
And the next day, if I didn't have any inspiration, I'd rewrite the thing I wrote yesterday to see if I could make it a little bit better.
I love this.
So I was just filling up notebooks with just pages and pages, and sometimes the things would just repeat and repeat because I'm trying to learn and teach myself how to make what I created yesterday better. And I just got obsessed with this process. But being obsessed with this process, I stopped getting into trouble for everything. Like I had no run-ins with the police all of a sudden. And, that began, you know, that is when I stepped through the doors to leave kind of a lot of the things behind from the past and to become the person and the artist that I am today. So I meet a woman from the Maldives Islands. We fall in love. We move in together, and we're living in the Fillmore district. And there's a place down the street called Culture on the Corner. It's a youth center, and I end up volunteering there for the kids in Fillmore. And it was there that I'm get introduced to some Muslims. And these guys were real serious, you know, like, damn, why are you guys this guy's so serious all the time? And, you know, they would say, hey, it's prayer time. They'd go to pray, and they'd say, hey, Chris, would you like to pray with us? And I'd say, no, I don't want. Why not? Well, because I don't know what you guys are saying. You guys are chanting all this Arabic, and I don't even know what you're saying. So they said, well, here, look. And they showed me, this is what we're saying in our prayers. Here's the English translations. They showed me what's known as Al-Fatiha, which is like what's known as the heart of the Quran. It's only 7 lines, but it's a very beautiful piece, and it's very universal. Like anyone of any religion would read these 7 lines and say, yeah, I agree with that. So I read it and said, oh, okay, I can get with that. And then I started to pray with them. And so eventually I ended up taking my Shahada, or Declaration of Faith, with them and becoming Muslim. You know, so all of that to say, those are the ingredients of Azeem, the artist. Mm-hmm. All those cities, plus Islam on top.
I love that.
So what about yourself? Like, because I remember going to your house with, you know, this equipment and just kind of the shades drawn. You know, there wasn't like a lot of people around you. It wasn't like a, you know, super party situation around you or anything. You were very focused.
I was working.
You were just working. Like, did you have I don't know, like a group of people who were teaching you, or who you created with, or like?
I had studied electronic music at UC Santa Cruz, and prior to that, all my music experience was in bands, learning from other people. But you asked if I was like doing it alone. I'm sure you would say, like, I'm such a composite of so many people's contributions and inspirations, and I learned everything by collaborating and working with people. But at the time I met you, I was on a warpath, just to record. And I just pulled it up last night. I'm listening to the track "What If" that you wrote, and I just wanted to use music to amplify, what I felt like were important messages. And you came across as like, I don't know if you're a Black Panther or you're just down with them or you just talk a lot like them, but like, I want to amplify you, dude. And that was because of the brothers I was hanging with that I explained to you. That's where that energy came from. Yeah. But I do want to say, I need to say this. It's hard for me to think about my work and the future. And the reason why I am excited to be dealing with you at this point in my life is because I kind of had given up. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just go into literature, even though nobody reads anymore. I'm going to finish this book and put that out, and maybe that'll do something, And then you popped up out of the blue and said, hey, I want to record some poetry or some songs with you or whatever. And the only reason why I'm excited about it and not as weary as I would be, because I know that you're an artist, and I know that you've been through a lot of the same things that I've been through, probably even worse because of the magnitude of where your career has reached. You've probably, been robbed a lot worse than I have. And that's why I trust you. And that's the only reason that I trust you, because I know I don't think that you're going to do to me what labels have continuously done to us. Yeah, man, I just want to say I love that. I love you for that. I trust you too. And you're spot on about that. We probably should do a third part just in on the music industry, because the shit we've seen is probably really helpful to new artists or younger artists.
Yeah.
But I'm fucking fascinated by your past. And I was writing down notes when you were talking. One thing I definitely want to know is when the first time is that violence was put on you.
A few things. First thing I can say is yes, again, my father handled his art. The way he disciplined me was through violence, and I don't really remember the first time that I was, physically beaten, punched around, things like that. So what that did to me was it made me unable to express myself when I would get upset. So when I get arguments or relationship problems or whatever. And not only that, but I would begin to react like my father. I would go from calm to immediately cursing and yelling and getting ready for violence and all that stuff like that, because that's what was programmed into me. And it wasn't until when I started to write, it all came out. So I realized, okay, I can't say it, but I can write it down. So I began to solve my issues by writing letters. This is how I feel and this is why. And I did it with my teachers, I did it with friends, I did it with girlfriends, whatever. And that's what made me a writer, the fact that I would literally shut down during high, intense emotional moments. But when I picked up the pen, I was able to express myself. So that's one thing. Now, as far as consciousness and being, morals and things like that, I'll tell you the type of asshole kid that I was. At 9, 10, whatever, when we would go up to New York, for the family. Most of my family lived in New York, so we would go to New York to visit the family, and for Christmas or Thanksgiving, everybody would, get together at grandma's house, let's say. So all the women would put their purses in the bedroom. So while everybody's eating Christmas dinner or doing whatever, I'm in the bedroom robbing my aunties and all my relatives' purses for their money.
I'm sorry to laugh, but it's just that's so
And this is like 9,
it's
10 years old.
Wow.
That's the type of, so, and I knew what the word consciousness meant, and I remember being a kid and being almost, being confused because I thought I didn't have it. And along with what you're saying, here's the thing. I relate to what you're saying about having empathy for others and not liking violence. The thing is, I'm a very gentle person. I hate violence, even though I grew up with it. I don't even kill bugs in my house if I can help it. Like I literally just try to catch them and put them out the window. You know what I mean?
I will smear a spider on the wall and leave it as a warning.
right.
The spider.
Yeah. See, I'll see a spider, go get a cup, go get a piece of paper, and get I go through the whole thing. So, but I don't know really, to be honest with you. I can't tell you when that started. I just know that I had been through so much, emotional pain from the environment, from home, and from outside, and from the streets and things like that. That I didn't want to be the one to inflict that same type of emotional pain on other people.
That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. Let me sum up real quick. Like, this is a piece that I wrote that kind of sums up everything that I just told you so far.
Oh, yes.
And it's an idea of, this is how, art and reality. So I'm going to just drop it for you like that. I've been a dropout, a hustler, a luster for street suspense, a king of pain. I've been a thief and a prince. I've seen death. I've felt bullets go by my own head. I've been beat by police. I've been locked up and left. I've been kicked out of schools. I've been jumped by skinheads. I hit a drug dealer's house. Barroom fights, parking lot wars. I was sent to the bad kid school in New York. I was just 15 with grown man thoughts, too smart for my teachers, too high to play sports. With 8 kids, when Pops broke west, we did school like jump roping and ain't been back since. Heavy stress. I guess he wanted tough kids. No backyard switches and belts. He used fists. I'd be beat up in my face and chest if I lied. I'm the class clown in the back with the black eye, with the fast type of criminal mind that didn't care. And the girls used to diss me and be like, he's weird, but I'm prepared. For every living hell a man's been in, I have very few fears and daydream for a living. I hit the world spinning. I was born sinning in a house with Jamaicans having poker games in it. And the cops used to visit, and they'd get cold stares and looking for my uncle. We'd be like, uncle ain't here. Cold beer, gray-haired kid, smoking marijuana, drinking all the house liquor, leaving water in the bottles. My life story like a best-selling novel. I've seen young minds ooze from heads till they hollow, and live and die by the code that I follow. Yesterday is over and there may be no tomorrow. So right now is when I do my thing. My life story has a title. It's The Misfit Kid.
Man, I love you.